A final action has been issued in the ComicsGate Trademark re-examination case between Ethan Van Sciver and Preston Poulter. Before I get into what this action is and what it means, let me give you a brief overview of what has happened so far. On September 3, 2018, Antonio Malpica, also known as Critias, filed with the United States Patent and Trademark Office for the ComicsGate trademark. When it appeared that Malpica would lose the mark for non-use, Preston Poulter of Pocket Jacks Comics filed for the ComicsGate trademark on April 15, 2020. A little more than a week later, on April 24th, the mark was declared abandoned. Malpica filed a declaration of first use and was awarded the trademark on July 14, 2020. Having lost the trademark to Malpica, Poulter filed cancellation proceedings against Malpica's mark with the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board on October 1, 2020. And unexpectedly, the following year on April 15, Malpica handed his trademark over to Ethan Van Sciver, and Mr. Van Sciver joined the proceedings. A motion to dismiss was filed by Van Sciver's attorney on August 2nd, and after a flurry of briefs, the motion to dismiss was denied on November 26th. And the trial schedule was set by TTAP. In March of this year, Poulter filed for a suspension of the cancellation proceedings in order to take advantage of a new re-examination procedure. This new procedure was conceived as a time-saving measure for the Trial and Appeal Board. It allows anyone to file a background report on a mark showing that a mark has never been used and sending it back to the examining attorney for either cancellation or affirmation. The Trial and Appeal Board granted the suspension, and the case was sent back to the Attorney Examiner for reconsideration based upon a report prepared by Poulter and filed by his attorney. And that brings us to the final action. When Poulter's attorney filed for the reexamination, there was something that Preston Poulter did not know. Anthony Romano, also known as Dark Gift Comics, had been in communication with Malpica back in 2020 regarding the ComicsGate trademark. Malpica gave Romano permission to use the ComicsGate mark on his book Dark of Midnight, The Art of Anthony Romano, and on the Wart the Wizard Sunday Follies Ashcan, a book that was offered as a stretch goal by Mandy Summers during her Wart the Wizard crowdfund. The final action states, "The evidence supplied by registrant does not show the comic books are actually sold to consumers. While the evidence submitted shows the comic books were produced and advertised, it does not show they were actually sold to U.S. consumers. Registrant must provide evidence showing sales of the comic books in the U.S. bearing the mark. Accordingly, the requirement to provide documentary evidence of use as of the relevant date is now made final." Simply put, the re-examination found that Malpica licensed the use of the trademark to Romano. When Poulter filed for the suspension of the cancellation proceedings and the re-examination, he took himself out of the case. The re-examination proceedings are ex parte, and Poulter abandoned the opportunity to protest and argue against Malpica and Van Sciver's position that there is a licensing agreement. The decision issued by the re-examination attorney is unappealable. Malpica and Van Sciver have 3 months to provide proof that Dark Gift Comics used the mark in commerce. That's 90 days to show that the books bearing the CG trademark were sold and delivered before the August 13, 2020 deadline for use. Enter Robert Romano, no relation to Anthony Romano. Robert purchased Dark Gift Comics art book from Lulu on May 18, 2020, and received the book a few weeks later in June. He also backed the Wart the Wizard crowdfund and received the Ashcan in July 2020. The Ashcan is of no real importance to the re-examination and most likely would not qualify as being used in commerce. It being a stretch goal, the Ashcan was not sold, it was given as a bonus to the backers. But Dark Gift Comics art book, Dark of Midnight, with a licensed mark on the back cover, qualifies as the ComicsGate trademark being used in commerce. Malpica and Van Sciver prevailing in the re-examination doesn't mean that this process is over. The cancellation proceedings before the Trademark Trial and Appeal Board will resume. Poulter's petition for cancellation revolves around 3 points. fraud, abandonment, and non-use. The re-examination finding in Malpica's favor nullifies Poulter's claim that the ComicsGate trademark was abandoned and wasn't used, but the fight over the ComicsGate trademark is far from over.